Kentucky.
Or Boston too.
Okay, that's helpful fact.
Yeah, I know, right? Your neighbor.
That's awesome, seriously.
This is Kira. We're going to be your guides today. I'll hang out in the front of the tour. She's going to hang out in the back. She's training, so you can ask her all sorts of questions, and she may or may not know the answer, but if she asks me, that's legit too. So, a little bit about the glacier, and I'll go over rules in a few minutes. This is the Matanuska Glacier. Matanuska Glacier is one of 100,000 glaciers in the state of Alaska. It goes back 27 miles here into the Chugach mountain range. That's these mountains right here. We can't see that mountain from here, but that's where our accumulation zone is. It'll snow year round up there, and that snow, instead of melting, will just keep packing on itself, recrystallize into glacier ice, and then flow down towards us. And so we're at the lowest spot here on the glacier, at the end of the glacier. All right, so thank you, Nick. So if we stay out of the water, that's going to be the safest place to be, is making sure that we don't end up in any puddles that are over our head. Because it's cold, it's even colder if you're wet. There's also a lot of thin ice out here. The glacier is very, very thick. If we stay on the glacier, we're fine, but those puddles all have that thin ice on them, which means they're not going to support our weight. So we want to make sure we're not walking on anything that we would fall into. Yeah, and if at any point you have any questions, or you're done or too cold and want to come back, please let me know. It just takes me picking up my radio, making a phone call, getting somebody there to walk you back. So, everybody good? Yes. All right, let's get moving. So I'll go ahead and take off here in front. That was too far.
That eye?
So I want to point out why we have these grates here. Most of what the grates are currently on is pretty solid, but this here is the mud that is brought on here by the glacier. So as the glacier moves, it's pulling the rocks from the mountains around it, and those rocks that end up in the glacier get ground up by the glacier into a very, very fine powder known as silt. Well, this silt, when mixed with water, creates a non-Newtonian fluid known as thixotropic mud. So non-Newtonian fluid's a big word. It means it can be solid, like it is right here, or it can act more like a quicksand. Like right here, if I start moving it, it kind of has a jiggle to it. And right there, obviously, I stepped in and I just kept going. If I were to sink it up to my knees, we would need help, because two grown men might not be able to pull me out. It's going to really hold me down, and I'm going to be really stuck. So I try to play with it without getting super stuck. This mud out here on the glacier, not life-threatening. If you get stuck right here because you're with a guide, we know where you are, we're going to be able to get you out. Not a big deal. It's just kind of inconvenient because you get really muddy. Where it is dangerous is in the inlet. So if you guys are going south of Anchorage to Seward, you go out on the mud flats or the inlet, like the outlet of the Matanuska River. Someone got stuck in that the other day. If you go out on that, that's the same mud, but the tide comes back in. So you go out when it's low tide or whatever, looks like you can walk across it, you get stuck. It's a race for you to get out before the tide comes back in, and you're now at the bottom of very, very cold water, very, very deep water. So I grew up in Anchorage, and I was just told you don't play on the mud flats because people got stuck. People didn't always survive after getting stuck. Sometimes search and rescue didn't get to them fast enough. They didn't have good ways to save them, things like that. And that was just kind of life in Anchorage, as you didn't play on the mud flats. So if you guys head out south of Anchorage, please don't play on the mud flats. You don't want to race search and rescue, see if they can come save you or not. That's not really worth the dare of seeing if that'll happen. This silt does have some really good properties though, because it's high in minerals. It's good for your face. Sometimes we'll put it on our face. We call that a glacial facial. You can do that on the way back. We can find some stuff somewhere on tour to do that if you want to do a little glacial facial while you're out here. It also is really good for soil quality. So it puts minerals back into the soil, helping make the Matanuska Valley a very rich soil base over there, because this glacier used to run all the way through the Matanuska Valley at one time. So that's kind of what first thing we see right here. So, all right, I'm going to jump back on this. I am not touching the bottom there. It's very, very deep. Here, can I see your stick real quick? Your walking stick? I won't get the handle wet, but I'll show you guys. It goes a little bit further. See how it's not even touching the bottom. So that's part of why we're going to stay right behind me, so we don't end up accidentally walking through any of this. All of this crack right here along the side with this white ice on top could all be very, very deep. And we just don't want to accidentally go swimming today. So we'll walk around this stuff. It all has a thin layer of ice, but obviously not enough ice to hold your body weight. So
Can I skip a rock?
you can try, yeah.
Okay, no one look.
I had to.
That's kind of cute on the rocks.
I was a toss one.
Beautiful. It's like a spray painted, don't it?
This is the terminus of the glacier. That's where the glacier ends and the river begins, right? So this is the Matanuska River over here. Most of this stuff is all icebergs that have either fallen off or sometimes they break off the bottom. And the way this thing works, this is actually the tarn, is the lake at the terminus of a glacier. These big towers of ice here, they're called serac, and they stand up about 300 foot off of the river. Well, we can only see about a third of the ice that's here. So from the top of that ice to the bottom is actually like 900, maybe even 1,200 feet.
Wow.
Most of it's underwater or in the dirt, right? Now our glacier comes forward at the end here, it hits it. There's some kind of intrusion that's at the end of our glacier, and it kind of hits, comes up over the top, and it gets these longitudinal crevasse. Well, and then it falls over into that. There's an over deepening right here. So it gets latitudinal crevasse, kind of like where your knuckles would break if you're coming over the edge, right? And that's how those big towers of ice, those serac, are formed. This is like 400 foot deep, and there's like 400 feet of ice underneath it. So I've seen big chunks of ice break off from the bottom and shoot out of this thing just like a whale and land right here at the edge. So we don't want to get too close to the edge over there. I've seen big things fall off of there. These big towers of ice, these serac, they fall down in, they're called calving events. Enjoy this, right? Not a lot of people get here. Let's make sure we're staying way back from that edge over there. Right? We don't want to be way back from that Oh, 500-700-year-old ice cube. Comes apart like puzzle pieces. So this is 500 to 700-year-old ice crystal, right? And ice crystals typically form in their columnar, like a quartz point would be. But these have been deformed by the glacier over the last 500 to 700 years as they're pushed downhill, right? And that's why they end up looking this way. There's a bunch of them here in the ground. If you want to grab them, they're kind of cool to look at. If you look inside of them, though, you'll see these little lines. See the little lines on the ice crystal? Water this time of year will get down in between the ice crystals, and then it'll refreeze. And you can eat it. It's
And can't
totally,
you put it back together?
It's pure ice. It's great in your whiskey.
Nice clean, clear water.